It started, the top question has to do with financial stress in the workplace and really sort of the increase of financial stress and sort of workers' issues around that. It's absenteeism, it's presenteeism, it's morale, things like that. What are your thoughts on what can be done, if there's a government role in any of this? What do you think about all of that, and what would you do about it?
Yeah, I think there's no question that this is something we've heard a great deal from stakeholders, and we just completed a study at the Human Resources Committee on precarious employment, which I think is part of this issue. We'll be coming up with a list of recommendations over the next couple of weeks that we'll be submitting to the government to address, some of that precarious employment, which we've heard from the witnesses at the committee on that led to absenteeism, low worker performance, those kinds of things. But I think some of the issues that we can deal with immediately is ensuring that employees are working, and that on the federal government side, it's getting money out the door quickly for infrastructure projects. We have seen, currently of the significant commitment or promises that the Liberal government has put out for infrastructure, less than 10% of the actual dollars have been committed to projects. So when you have a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure plan, but you're only getting less than 10% of the dollars to the provinces and municipalities to begin construction of those projects, that does lead to some problems. And I think the number one thing with financial stress is ensuring that Canadians have jobs and are working.
And sort of, what about at the corporate level? I mean, for people who are working and have these, stresses of home life, daycare costs, whatever it is. I mean, for people who are in that sort of white collar world, I know some companies offer benefits plans or things like that, but do you have any thoughts, or can you talk about some of the recommendations that will go forward?
Yeah, I think I think there's been such a change, even in that white collar work world, where you're seeing so much more of these jobs being contracted out, and a lot of the times it's by the desire, the want of that person, as they have left the corporate world, quote unquote, and have become a contractor, or a business owner of their own, and those are choices that they have made. But a lot of the times, especially when they get started, that does lead to additional financial stress and mental stress, which I know goes to your next question. So we need to take a look at what goes into those decisions. Is it because of corporations themselves are streamlining their operations and hiring contract workers rather than full-time employees? And I think that's a lot of the work that will be done from this study. But what role the federal government wants to take in private industry, I think we have to be careful with that. I don't think anybody wants too much intervention from the federal government into the private sector.
Right, but there could be issues like savings plans, enhancing savings plans, things that allow people to sort of help with their income burdens. Is any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's really one of the reasons why we brought forward the tax-free savings account under the previous government, is to address issues like that, to give Canadians additional tools to enhance their savings and expanding RRSPs. But the TFSA was a very popular initiative that allows people to save when they can and access those dollars tax-free when needed. And I think perhaps one of the recommendations out of this study will be to review that. It wasn't something that came up a great deal in the witness testimony. I think one of the main issues was that contract work was something they wanted us to take a look at, as if they're those contractors and people who are self-employed don't show up in EI statistics when there's a downturn like we have gone through, especially in Alberta and Saskatchewan over the last couple of years. So I think we need to also take a look at the data and how that data is collected and who is included. And a lot of the times those people who are self-employed or contractors or small business owners can't access that social safety net like EI.
Right.
And maybe there's some some ways we can take a look at that to ensure that they qualify or can access those programs when needed.
Okay.
As a whole for the Green Party is that we have resilience, social cohesion, and a society that does not feel stressed by the financial or other stresses. I mean, we're a smarter and happier society when the social safety net doesn't have big gaps, when our healthcare system meets people's needs, when people can afford to buy a house. All of those pieces are an important part of the way the Green Party sees our vision. So in the context of financial stress, obviously when you talk about workplace stress, you're talking about people who are generally employed. They're looking at the costs of their mortgage, making ends meet. But I should say that one of the pieces that we want to bring in, and it really has much more of an impact at the very lowest ends of the economic scale, and that's to have a guaranteed livable income. So no Canadian would experience poverty.
Right.
But at the level of workplace stress and finances stretching, I think a lot of it is related to affordable housing and stretching to, we have to do stress tests for mortgages. I know, but Bill Morneau has been very focused on the risk of too much personal and household debt. And certainly personal and household debt, regardless of your income, for most Canadians, not for the billionaire class, but for many Canadians, that will increase stress. So it's just a question of having an emphasis on more affordable housing for people who do have decent jobs but still can't find good affordable housing. Another place of stress for people, particularly younger families, is to ensure that we have an adequate care. Minute or two. Good idea. So, we're stopping the car where I've got a signal.
Okay.
What an amazing idea. And I think I'm okay to talk for 10 minutes before I really need to scoot to get to where I'm supposed to speak.
All right, let's try and get through this then. So, I mean, you talked about adequate daycare, pharmacare, more affordable housing.
And of course, we don't want young people. So, looking at the issues for younger workers, we don't want people entering the workforce with staggering levels of student debt. So, our programs around post-secondary are very strong to eliminate debt and eliminate tuition. But I think for most of for workplace issues and financial stress, my intuition around the economic stats tells me it's probably the cost of housing and any debt loads that you have when you enter the workforce, and those things need to be addressed.
What would you say to people today? I mean, there's right now all of those policy programs you're discussing are not in place. What would you say to people today who are dealing with that, workplace issues as a result of more high mortgages or debt loads or things like that?
Well, we don't want to just we want to retroactively eliminate a lot of the student loans. It's a real burden, and it's not productive in our society. So we want to address that for people now who have existing student loans, not just going forward. And of course, we want to address the need for affordable childcare. And the Green Party policies, if you look at them online, all our policies are online in a document called Vision Green. And then every election cycle, we update for what our specific immediate priorities would be, because not all policy is immediately a platform item, but we cost out our platform and show how we'll afford all these things. So we will be addressing, if we were forming government, we would be reducing a lot of the stresses immediately on existing student debt, as well as improving the affordability of housing.
Okay. Besides financial stress, there's
daycare. By the way, our daycare policies are different from other parties in that we put a priority on workplace childcare and working in cooperation with employers to make it more feasible. But workplace childcare also reduces stress on families where you have the stress on the time crunch, because time poverty is also a real issue, and it's measured by Statistics Canada. Time poverty is particularly acute, even if you have a decent income. Any single mother can tell you about time poverty, but the crunch of got to get the toddler to daycare and then get to work on time, or two toddlers, you're looking at one of the big crunches that adds to stress in people's lives is when the child care is in a different direction from the workplace. So workplace child care enhances the efficiency and access to public transit. So if you're going to work and you're taking a subway or a bus and you're taking your child with you because their 8-hour day at childcare is in the same place as your 8-hour day at work, and you have access to them through the day, worker productivity goes up, the stresses go down, and it's a very good formula for ensuring that parents have access to their kids through the day and vice versa, and it's cheaper to get to work.
Financial stress in the workplace. It's really a growing issue. People are dealing with tuition payments, family costs, things like that, and they're bringing those problems to work. And there's a lot of absenteeism and morale and productivity issues. That's part A. Part B is just other stigmas and stress in the workplace that affect productivity and efficiency and things like that. So the question on both parts is really, what, if anything, is there a government role to be played in dealing with that, whether it's education or retirement plans or things like that, and what policy initiatives do the NDP have around those issues?
Well, this is exactly what we focus on. This is kind of our priority. So first off, I think you just want to underline the problem a bit more, that we've seen recent reports that put essentially half of Canadians are self-reporting that they feel like they're about $200 away from insolvency. So $200 away from the financial brink. And so that's a lot of stress that people are faced with.
Right.
And that's a reality. And so when that's the type of response we're getting, we can actually spell that out, that financial stress is literally that people feel like they're on the brink of financial collapse. That's a massive problem. And so that stress, as well as the other struggle, that adds to the other worries that people have in life, that compounds, other insecurities around precarious work. Sometimes work is not as stable as it used to be, and other costs of life. Like one of the major reasons why people are so worried about the costs you touched on, one of them is student debt for a lot of younger workers.
Yeah.
But it's also housing is the biggest single cost in people's lives. It's often as much as 30 to 50% of someone's salary goes towards housing. So it's a big contributor to financial stress, and it's a big contributor to just general not having that sense of well-being. If you don't know if you've got a place to call home, it's a massive burden on your mind. So we are directly responding to the concern of housing affordability by putting forward a plan to build 500,000 new affordable homes. We've seen governments try to make announcements around maintaining existing housing, but that's not enough. We need to actually build new homes. And there's been about 30 years, so 3 decades of neglect when it comes to housing. The federal government used to invest regularly in new builds, where there would be new cooperatives or new housing opportunities, new homes that used to be supported at the federal level. That's not happened for at least 3 decades. And if you look at the gap in housing now and look at the gap in the funding at the federal level, a lot of the housing problem is a direct result of that negligence or that neglecting that's been done by the federal government. So we would address that with massive investments in building new homes. It's also part of our economic planning. When you build new affordable homes, that's going to generate jobs in communities. This is not something that we will have to model or speculate whether or not there'll be jobs created, much like when some parties propose corporate tax cuts, hoping that it'll generate economic activity, and the evidence does not bear that out. We know that building homes will require jobs to be created in communities, in those communities where homes are going to be built. So it's part of our jobs creation. It's also to alleviate the stress. We're also releasing a plan around student debt and how we can help alleviate some of the stress that students are faced with or graduates are faced with. So we've got a plan around lessening the burden. And then we also have some policies around making sure we tackle the stigma of mental health and increasing funding to support folks who need support around mental health. So those are 3 areas where we're going to address that stress of affordability.
Are those current NDP initiatives, or that'll be announced as part of the election campaign?
So the housing one has already been announced. We've announced that we've built 500,000 affordable housing, and we've also talked about some of the specifics of that initiative will include working with increasing co-op housing, non-market and non-profit housing as solutions to affordable homes, as affordable options for people, as well as partnering and with the private sector to encourage the building of more affordable homes. So that's already been laid out as a part of a plan that we've proposed. We've signaled that we're going to be releasing some details around our plan for young people, and that has not yet been rolled out, but it'll be rolled out shortly as one of our announcements. A part of that, I should say the announcement then, because we'll be laying out details of that plan.
Okay.
All this will be in our electoral campaign, in our electoral platform, and our vision for the electoral campaign will be released well ahead of the election, where we've just announced today, I believe, that we'll be putting out our vision document in the summer. So before the election, people will have a full sense of where we're going. So
and some of those issues, in terms of when you look at it from our readers and our audience are really sort of at the HR level, the employer level. You know, you talk about housing, you talk about student debt, but when you look at it from the employer level or the HR level, are there ways you think the government or your party would work with those groups to help with their workforce who are dealing with these issues, rather than just at the employee level? What can you do with businesses?
Well, I think the support that will flow to businesses is if workers, employees have more options for affordable homes, it'll alleviate some of the financial stress. So that's a direct impact on that financial stress that people are feeling, which will alleviate those concerns in a big way, since it's one of the major costs that people have to deal with, and that'll then free up that stress or that some of that burden so that people can focus on their work and focus on productivity and contributing in the way that they can do the best work. And then on again, our policies are focused very much on what people are going through, so that we can make their lives easier, so that they can go and do their work better. So that's kind of